The demand curve for labor represents the relationship between the wage rate and the quantity of labor demanded by employers in a particular market or industry. The curve slopes downwards, and it indicates that the wage rate increases as the quantity of labor demanded by employers decrease. And we would assume at that time everything is remained constant. From an employer's perspective, the marginal product of labor is a measure of an additional output that results from hiring an additional unit of labor, while holding other inputs constant. In other words, it represents the change in total outputs that occurs when one additional worker is hired, assuming that all other factors of production, such as capital and technology, remains constant. Furthermore, the marginal revenue product is a concept in economy that measures the additional revenue generated by a firm when it hires one additional unit of labor, while holding other inputs constant. It represents the changes in the firm's total revenue that occurs when it hires one additional worker. A principle in economy that suggests that all employers should continue hiring workers until the marginal revenue product of labor is equal to the wage rate paid to those workers. And this rule is called the rational rules for employers. The rational rule for employers is based on the idea that firms operate in a competitive market where they aim to maximize their profits. By hiring workers up to the point where the marginal revenue product of labor equals to the wage rate, firms can ensure that they are not paying extra but fair prices for the labor they receive while maximizing their profits. There are 4 factors that shifts the demand curve, and it does impact the profits and revenues that markets often receive. The first one is changes in demand of a product. An increase in demand for product will lead to an increase in the demand for labor, as firms will need to produce more of the product to meet the increased demand. This increase in labor demand will shift the labor demand curve to the right, indicating that at any given wage rate, employers will be willing to hire more workers than before. Conversely, a decrease in demand for a product will lead to a decrease in the demand for labor, as firms will need to produce less of the product to meet the decreased demand. This decrease in demand will shift the demand for labor curve to the left, indicating that employers will be willing to hire lesser workers than before. The second one is an increase in the price of capital that could lead firms to substitute capitals for labor. This means that firms would use less labor and more capital in their production process, which means it could lead to a decrease in the demand for labor. As a result, the demand for labor curve would shift to the left, indicating that firms are willing to hire fewer workers at any given wage rate. On the other hand, a decrease in the price capital would lead to firms to substitute labors for capital. This means that firms would use more labor than capital in their production process, which could lead to an increase in demand for labor. The third one is management and productivity gains that can shift the demand curve to the right, increasing the quantity of labor demanded at any given wage rate. This is because improvements in management and productivities can increase marginal products of labor, leading to an increase in the marginal revenue product of labor. In other words, an increase in productivity or better management can increase the demand for labor, leading to a higher wage and increased employment. The fourth one is non-wage benefits such as health insurance, retirement plans can increase the total cost of hiring of a worker beyond just the wage rate. This can result a shift in the demand for labor curve to the left, as firms may be willing to hire fewer workers at the higher total cost. A real-life example of a shift in demand for labor curve could be the emergence of a new industry, such as the renewable energy industry. As more countries and companies prioritize reducing their carbon footprints, there is increasing demand for clean energy technologies such as wind and solar powers. For labor in this renewable industry has increased in recent years, resulting in a rightward shift of the demand curve. This is because firms in the industry requires more workers to produce the renewable energy products, and they are willing to pay higher wages to attract workers with the necessary skills and experts.